They are in the middle. When they fill out the before and after form, like 1 to 10, there's a whole bunch that come in 1 and they leave 1, and they come in 10 and they leave 10, right? Like a sports thing. But there are students that mark 3 or 6, and after the debate they move from 3 to 5 maybe, or they move from 6 to 4. There is some movement in that little area, and that's what college is, isn't it? Liberal arts. This has a liberal arts department, right? How many universities have a conservative arts department? Liberal, and open, expand, try, learn, be open to gray areas and all that kind of stuff. So anything you can do to increase just public awareness. You don't have to win the debates. You don't have to win the arguments. You don't have to nail it shut. You don't have to feel like. But as long as you're there. Look what happened with the gay movement. The gays have a long way to go still. But look at the progress they've made the last 10, 20 years by just being out, by just being there. And I think atheism, agnosticism right now is maybe 10, 20 years behind the gay movement, maybe, as far as that goes. But you get to be a part of it. And 20 years from now, you guys are going to get to look back and say, look at the progress we made. Of course, I lost the gift of prophecy years ago, but that's my optimism. That's what's going to happen. Yeah.
What other lawsuits are being taking place right now on the foundation?
We have 8 lawsuits now. One of them is a big one, another federal lawsuit. It's the housing allowance for clergy. Did I just talk about that a little bit? Yeah. Clergy, how much did I say about it? Because I talked about this last night. In the 1950s, clergy, the IRS amended its statutes so that a minister of the gospel, that's the phrase, in the IRS code, minister of the gospel does not have to report their rent or their housing, their house payments, if the church declares it as a housing allowance. Because some churches have a parsonage that they live on, or like a monastery that the priest just lives there. And well, in the past, the priest had to declare that housing as income. You have to declare fair value, right? And so they passed along in the 50s that no minister of the gospel has to do that. Well, that phrase, minister of the gospel, has been expanded to include rabbis and cantors and anybody who does any sacerdotal function. In fact, it's been so broad that a basketball teacher at a Catholic high school is taking this housing allowance, right? They're considering we are ministers, we're doing a ministerial thing. And it came to light a few years ago with Rick Warren. Before his big book was published and he was famous, Rick Warren, the pastor of Saddleback. Rick Warren had his church pay his entire salary as a housing allowance. He was getting $80,000 a year back then, which was a lot of money. And the entire thing was a housing allowance. Therefore, he had no income and he was paying no taxes, right? And somebody thought that didn't seem right. And so there was a lawsuit taken which clarified the law, saying that the housing allowance can still stand, but it has to be fair market value. But they grandfathered Rick Warren in, so he did not have to go back and pay back taxes. Ever since then, now, clergy it has to be fair. You can't say, my housing allowance, I pay $100,000 a year in rent, right? You can't say that. But we're challenging the whole idea that clergy get this break. None of the rest of us do. Why do ministers of the gospel get this tax break, which lowers their liability, and the rest of us have to pay more? Why? And we work for a nonprofit educational group. We don't get to do it. We're even claiming discrimination against us. Why is it only religious people? Why can't the head of the Red Cross? Why can't some other charity who's doing really good things? Why is it only ministers of the gospel? We're hoping that we don't get it. We don't want it. We're hoping that they take it away from the clergy because it just doesn't seem right. That harkens back to the theocracies when the clergy actually were a special class of people above everybody else, right? They were privileged. And ministers of the gospel, a lot of them still think they are a privileged class. That they get to be treated in a special way because what they're doing is so great for the country that we get all these breaks, right? So, and it's even worse than that. Not only can clergy exclude, they don't have to, it's not even that it's not reportable, it's excluded. Not only can they exclude their housing from their income, but if they're making a house mortgage payment, they can also deduct the interest on the loan. Think about that. They're deducting interest on a loan that was paid with money that was not taxed. So they're getting a double dipping. They're getting a double break from that. And it's legal. It's under IRS code. And some ministers figured that out, right? So that's one of our lawsuits we're taking now. And there's a professor, he's now a professor at the law school at Irvine, Chemerinsky, who was ready to take the lawsuit years ago, but he couldn't for some reason. Well, he's going to help us out with the legal side of we're already filed, we're already in court. And we have like 25 California plaintiffs that are joining us on this thing. So watch that one. The churches don't like this. Ministers have tried to intervene, and the courts have blocked their intervention, which means they want to be named and be a participant in this lawsuit. Because why? It's their pocketbook, right? If we win, churches are going to have to pay their pastors more. And why would they not want to, right? So this tax thing, taxes in churches is a strange thing. When the church catches fire, who do they call? They call the tax-supported fire department, right? They want all the benefits of taxation, but they think they don't have to pay for them. Okay? We still have time here?
Yeah,
Okay.
unless we're out of questions.
Okay.
If there's a theocracy in this country, it's a state of Utah. Do you have anything going on there?
Maybe they should secede, you know? If they want to run a little theocracy. Yeah, it is a de facto theocracy. Although in Utah, most citizens are not Mormon. Especially in Salt Lake City, in fact, a huge majority are not Mormon. But the Mormons have power in Utah and Arizona and around. I think there's more Mormons in Utah than in Arizona than in Utah. Somebody should check their papers, make sure they're... Yeah, and they pulled all sorts of shenanigans. And since a lot of the people in government are Mormon, they get all these breaks and abilities with zoning and... when you think about it, see, I was a Protestant Christian, and I thought it was so obvious that Mormonism was so nuts. I mean, really. To me, it was so obvious. This guy in Palmyra, New York. Here comes the Angel Moroni, and this young guy named Joseph Smith digs in this hill that he calls Cumorah. And by the way, there's an island off of Africa called Moroni, and the capital of it is Cumorah. Joseph Smith knew about this back then. He didn't know it. But anyway, he puts these little magic stones in a hat, and he shakes it and he looks, and then he's able to read these golden tablets that were written in an ancient American Indian language, because the American Indians were one of the lost tribes of Israel. And you know, you go on and on and on, and you go. And what's weird about this is Mormons went over to England and to other countries, and they told this story to people, and people said, okay, and they joined, and they came back to Utah with them. So what does that tell you about human nature? You know, I mean, obviously, there's something about human nature that wants to be convinced of this stuff, and then it becomes part of their culture. And that was part of my process, by the way. Thinking, look at how the Mormons are good people. They have high morality, although Mormon men watch more pornography than others, especially in Utah. And the women take more drugs for depression than almost anyone else. So there are some problems with them.
They also bankroll initiatives.
They do what?
Bankroll initiatives.
Yeah.
Anti-gay initiatives.
Yeah. Yeah, like right here, Proposition 8. Yeah, they were a big part of that. But anyway, the point is that everyone else's religion looks really dumb. What's on the back of the shirt you guys are wearing? What does it say?
New shirts.
Read what it says.
The easy confidence with which I know another man's religion is folly teaches me to suspect that my own is also. Mark Twain.
Mark Twain, okay, what a great guy. There's a lot of good quotes of his. One of my favorites was, heaven for climate, hell for society. Or, it's best to check the weather report before you pray for rain. That's another one. Yeah, here's a question.
Yeah, you said that looking at the Mormon religion helped you in the process to eventually becoming an atheist. You said it was a gradual process.
Yeah.
And I wanted to know, how did evolution, I'm assuming when you were a preacher you didn't believe in that, I want to know how did that